Hello, I'm Elisa, and I'm part of the Ovrt group who is accepting the Eleanor Clark's LEGO Award for 2054. Before we go into what Ovrt does and what we are about, I'd like to go a little bit into the history of the award that we are receiving and the history of occupational therapy. So the Eleanor Clark's LEGO Award was founded in 1954 by Eleanor herself. It recognizes occupational therapy practitioners who have contributed innovation and the development of knowledge through research, education, and clinical practices. And it's also a memorialization of Eleanor herself. Eleanor was one of the founders and one of the presidents of AOTA. And occupational therapy was founded on the idea of rehabilitation aids for World War I soldiers who needed vocational rehabilitation after the war ended. And occupational therapy has grown into a rehabilitation therapy for all different populations and people with different disabilities and different occupational needs and desires for various people. And through the decades and until today, it is continuing to grow. I'm going to introduce you to Mitch, who will be introducing Ovrt to you.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Mitchell Garrity, and I'd like to first thank everyone for letting us accept this award. So a little bit about our company, Ovrt. We all first met as students at the University of Sciences studying MOT, and we just wanted to take something that was not really that big in the field of occupational therapy, virtual reality, and implement it. So we started our company Ovrt, spelled OVRT, which stands for Occupational Virtual Reality Therapy. And what we really wanted to do was take virtual reality, which at the time when we started our program in 2019 wasn't that big of an adaptive use in therapy, and kind of implement it into OT and change the way that world views virtual reality. So like I said at the time, back in 2019 when we started our program, virtual reality was mainly just used for gaming. There wasn't really many practical applications in the therapeutic setting, but with the start of our company, Ovrt, we were able to do that. Now I'd like to introduce Melissa to talk a little bit about how back in 2019 the practices affect our contemporary Ovrt.
Thank you, Mitch. My name is Melissa from Ovrt, and I'm going to talk about how OT in 2019 influenced our company. Many technological advances that happened in 2019 have influenced Ovrt. Technologies such as Spire's health tags that connect to undergarments and track patterns in breathing, heart rate, and sleep. This helped identify potential relapses of patients and allowed OTs to see if their modified performance patterns were effective for the client. Another influencing product for Ovrt was LifeWear Steady and LifeWear Level, which are stabilizing and leveling utensils that help facilitate eating for individuals and groups suffering from hand tremors and limited hand and arm mobility. Technological advances support the vision of occupational therapy, which holds the value of clients using their occupations as a means of promoting health and well-being. These technologies help support safety and independence in a client's chosen occupation that may have been otherwise too difficult or risky to accomplish without these supports. This goes to show the importance of evolving technology and how it has shaped Ovrt. Now I will introduce Caroline.
Thank you, Melissa. So another technological advance that inspired Ovrt was SABO. SABO was an ADL, or Active Daily Living Rehabilitation System, which engaged clients in physical and cognitive activities that involved ADLs. It targeted clients that lost function, such as function of hands and arm after a stroke. And they were able to provide clients real-life challenges. The user would incorporate their impaired upper limb to perform simulated self-care activities, like picking up, transferring, and manipulating virtual objects. It allowed the client to also work on their movement function. This was just one of the many technologies that inspired us to pursue VR into Ovrt. I'd like to introduce Rachel, who will get more into what inspired Ovrt.
Caroline. In 2019, virtual reality was also used to help those with autism spectrum disorder strengthen their relationships with others. Due to the fact that many on the spectrum have trouble with sensory processing and become overwhelmed by the conditions of their environment, virtual reality allowed them to practice these skills in a relaxed and controlled setting. Individuals experienced virtual bus and cafe situations and would determine where they would sit based on judgment. They would later explain why they chose to sit where they did. After this was done over the course of many weeks, they were able to improve upon their judgment to decide where they would sit, as well as their explanations of why they chose that spot. Since virtual reality was a newer concept in 2019, there were a few limitations at the time that we improved upon when creating Ovrt. Virtual reality was mostly used in video gaming treatment settings. There were often lag times present between users' movements and visual input or response from virtual environments. This lag time could end up causing motion sickness. We were limited to what sensory information we could integrate before we found out how to add senses such as smell or taste. And lastly, virtual reality was very expensive. Now I'm going to introduce Sophia to talk more about our present-day accomplishments.
Thanks, Rachel. Ovrt has combined the world of occupational therapy and virtual reality into one. Both the OT and the patient have a VR headset, and it would be what your typical one-to-one live session treatment would be, except you could be on opposite ends of the earth. The patient would wear a suit inserted with electrodes, and the OT would have a dummy that when the OT would touch it, the patient could feel that in real time. This way that would help with passive range of motion and demonstrating exercises. 35 years ago in 2019, VR was still new and expensive, but now VR is everywhere, cost-effective, and covered by insurance. Once the patient is approved for Ovrt by insurance, we send a representative out to their home to set it up and teach them how to use it. If the patient has any trouble with it in the future, we also provide 24/7 tech support. We have on-call administrators for easy appointment scheduling, and it's easily accessed through an app on your smartphone to be able to begin your treatment sessions, end your treatment sessions, and even do online scheduling if you prefer. Back in 2019, OT had begun to implement the use of VR gaming in treatment sessions, which had a lot of success with neuro patients and children with autism. We decided to take it a few steps further to help any population in need. And now I'm going to bring it back to Mitch.
How's it going again? So now I'd like to talk about the populations that we'd be focusing on with the use of Ovrt. Our main populations we'd be focusing on are mainly geriatrics, anyone with disabilities, or anyone that has a physical environmental barrier preventing them from accessing occupational therapy. Our main focuses are going to be ADLs and IADLs. Those are activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living. Specific ones focused on with Ovrt would be bathing and showering, functional mobility, personal hygiene, and eating. Those are going to be the ADLs mainly targeted by Ovrt. Our IADLs that we'd be focusing on are driving, cooking, care for pets, safety and emergency management, and job performance. Specifically, job performance and driving are going to be two main ones that we're going to be working on with geriatrics. Driving performance, we could use it as in a rehabilitative setting to have the geriatric patient actually relearn or retest their driving abilities, and then also just to actually display that they are capable or competent in driving. Job performance is another big one, especially with elderly population or anyone with a disability. There could be on-the-job training without actually ever leaving the house. So Ovrt would allow real-life stimuli and almost real-life scenarios, again, without ever leaving the house, and would allow people to be competent in their job and give people a chance at actually maintaining a job. And lastly, I'd just like to introduce Elisa to close us out for accepting our Sligo Lecture Award.
Thank you, Mitch, and all of our Ovrt group speakers. On behalf of Ovrt, we would just like to thank the AOTA for giving us this prestigious award, and Eleanor Clark for being a pioneer in the OT practice, and we look forward to creating more innovations in the future. Thank you.